I never imagined that one day I would be standing here, looking back at everything and telling you this story. A story that I never wanted to share with anyone. But perhaps now, I need to. Because I know that if I don't speak up, too many people might repeat the same mistakes I made. And it all started with a friend I once trusted more than anyone else in the world. Her name is Sarah, and we've been best friends since we were in college. We met in a psychology class, a subject that we both loved. We quickly connected and became close. The long nights in the library, the coffee breaks where we talked about everything from funny stories to deep, meaningful topics, were all memories I cherish. Sarah was someone special. She was always friendly, smart, and had a magnetic charm. Even though she appeared strong and independent, I knew she needed my support. Just like me, she had a life that wasn't perfect, but we both tried to help each other through the tough times. Her husband, Mark, was someone I met for the first time one evening, when we all went out for dinner at a small restaurant near campus. I remember very clearly how Sarah spoke about him. "Mark is a very special person. He's changed my life," she said, and I could see the love in her eyes. I thought she was just lucky to have someone like him. Mark was a quiet man, not too loud, but I could feel that he was understanding, a good listener, and always respectful. We also quickly became friends and would often hang out together. We all shared a love for sports, so weekend basketball games or runs became a regular part of my routine. But things began to change over time. As my relationship with Mark became closer, Sarah started to act in ways I couldn't explain. At first, I thought they were just small things. For example, she would suggest that Mark and I do more activities or travel together. There were even times when she'd say, "I think you two will really get along. Mark's great, he's easy to talk to." I started to feel like something was off. Comments like these might have seemed innocent, just a friend complimenting her husband, but the more they happened, the more uneasy I became. Sarah seemed to be pushing for me and Mark to spend more time together, sometimes arranging situations where it was just the two of us, and Sarah would step away, as if it were part of some plan. One evening in late October, when the weather was getting colder and the golden leaves were falling to the ground, we decided to have a small party at our place. That was the first time I felt real tension between Sarah and me. She seemed to be controlling everything around her. She kept a strange distance from both Mark and me, and I began to feel that something was different. Mark, in contrast to Sarah's distance, was trying to make me feel at ease. He asked me about my work, my future plans, and we chatted naturally. Sarah, however, acted oddly, always appearing at the right moment, interrupting our conversations, as if she was trying to keep a certain distance between Mark and me. At that point, I didn't realize it, but I started to feel like I was being pushed out of her life. It was as if there was an invisible barrier between us, something I had never seen before. She was no longer the friend I once knew, and Mark, while not doing anything extraordinary, I began to notice there was a connection between us that couldn't be ignored. Later that evening, when people began to leave, Sarah said something I will never forget. "Mark might be a good match for you. You make him feel comfortable, and that's something I really appreciate." That comment not only confused me, but also made me feel something was wrong. I couldn't understand why she would say that, and why she wanted Mark and me to become closer. The next day, I decided to ask Sarah about the strange feelings I was having. She just laughed and said, "I just want you two to get along better. Don't overthink it. I just want both of you to be happy." But in her voice, I could sense something more, a quiet assertion that I couldn't explain. Days passed, and the encounters between Mark and me became more frequent. Sarah always had a reason to not join us, and I started to feel like something was very off. Everything became more and more unclear, and I couldn't understand why she was acting this way. Did she know what was happening? And was my relationship with Mark really just friendship? I still remember that night like it was yesterday, crystal clear, like it had happened just moments ago. It was one of those late evenings in early December, where the chill of the air bites through your jacket, and the lights from the city streets reflect off the snow. It was supposed to be just another night out with friends, but it turned into the night everything changed. At this point, things had been escalating for weeks. After Sarah's odd comments, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every time Mark and I hung out, I couldn't help but feel like there was this invisible, magnetic pull between us. Something unspoken, something I couldn't ignore. It wasn't overt, but it was there. And then the worst part was, Sarah seemed to have no problem with it. If anything, she encouraged it. That night, Sarah had planned a dinner for a few close friends. Mark and I were supposed to meet her at their house around 7 p.m. We were all supposed to just enjoy a casual evening together. But what started as a simple dinner party turned into something I never could have imagined. Looking back, I think Sarah had orchestrated everything to this point. When I arrived at their place, Sarah was already in the kitchen, finishing up a few last-minute preparations. Mark greeted me at the door with his usual warmth. There was a moment when our eyes met, and for some reason, it felt like everything around us went silent. I couldn't explain why, but it was like time slowed down just for a second. The electricity in the air was palpable, and it made me uncomfortable. As the evening went on, things got more and more unusual. Sarah had decided to pour wine for everyone, and she kept filling my glass more often than necessary. Mark, being the easygoing guy he was, just laughed it off, but something in his eyes seemed different, distant, almost as if he was lost in thought. It wasn't until later that night when things really spiraled. It was around 11 p.m., and everyone had gone home except for me and Mark. Sarah had run out for a quick errand, or at least that's what she told us. I didn't think much of it. I just assumed it was another one of her doing her own thing moments. Mark and I were sitting on the couch, chatting about random things, work, life, funny memories we shared, when he suddenly asked, "So, how are you really doing? You've seemed a little distant lately." I remember being caught off guard by the question. He was always the one who could sense things like that about people. Maybe it was because of the deep conversations we had over the past few weeks. Or maybe it was just his way of showing he cared. But in that moment, I felt something shift between us. It wasn't just a casual question. It was something more. "I'm okay, just things have been a little off lately," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to say too much, but I also couldn't hide the truth from him. We had been getting closer, and it wasn't something I was used to. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he just stared at me, his eyes softening. For a moment, it felt like we were the only two people in the room. The tension between us was undeniable. And then, just as I was about to say something else, I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. It wasn't the wine, I realized, it was something else. Suddenly, the room seemed to spin, and I barely had time to react before everything went black. I woke up what felt like hours later, my head pounding, disoriented. I was no longer on the couch. I was lying in a bed, and I could hear the soft sound of the wind howling outside. As I tried to move, I realized I wasn't alone. Mark was sitting on a chair beside the bed, looking worried. Hey, take it easy," he said, his voice filled with concern. "You passed out for a bit. You scared me there." I tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy, sluggish. "What happened? How long have I been out?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "You were fine 1 minute, and then you just collapsed." "I don't know. You didn't drink that much, did you?" Mark's words were thick with confusion, and I could sense the unease in his voice. I shook my head, trying to make sense of everything. My mind was still foggy. I don't think so," I replied, struggling to remember what had happened before I passed out. "Where's Sarah?" Is she okay? He paused for a moment, then looked away. I noticed how uneasy he suddenly seemed. Sarah's not here. She went out, remember? I tried to clear my mind, but everything felt off. There was a strange, nagging feeling in my stomach, like something was missing, something important. But my thoughts were jumbled, and I couldn't quite piece things together. Mark helped me to sit up, and for the first time since I woke up, I saw his face clearly. There was something different in his eyes. Something deeper. Something that made my heart race. "Mark, what happened?" I asked, my voice shaking with unease. He hesitated before speaking again. "You passed out. But I think you should know something." The room felt suddenly colder, and I felt a tightness in my chest. "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach nodding. I think Sarah planned this," he said quietly, almost as if he didn't want to admit it. "I don't think it was an accident. She made sure we'd be alone tonight." My heart skipped a beat. "What are you saying?" He lowered his gaze. I think she set you up." It took a few moments for his words to sink in. My mind was spinning, and I couldn't comprehend what he was saying. Sarah, my best friend, had set me up. It didn't make sense. I couldn't even process it. But deep down, a part of me knew he was right. All the signs were there. The strange behavior, the forced closeness between me and Mark, the way she'd pushed us together. It wasn't just coincidental. Mark stood up, pacing in front of me. "She's been planning this for weeks. The way she's been setting us up, the way she's been keeping us close, she wanted this to happen. I think she's using you to get what she wants." I felt the blood drain from my face. "But why? Why would she do that?" Mark stopped and turned to face me, his eyes filled with regret. "I think she's trying to break us up. She wants a divorce, and she's using you as leverage. She's trying to make it look like something happened between us." The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Sarah had been manipulating everything. She had been using me, using our friendship, to get what she wanted. And the worst part was I had fallen into her trap. The days after that night felt like a blur, a strange mix of fear, confusion, and disbelief. I couldn't quite wrap my mind around the fact that Sarah, my best friend, had been playing me all along. She had orchestrated this twisted game, using me as a pawn to manipulate Mark, to break us apart, and most importantly, to get her hands on the life she thought she deserved. But I wasn't ready to let her win. Not without a fight. Mark and I didn't speak for a few days. I needed time to process everything he had told me, and he needed time to figure out what he was going to do. But the longer we avoided each other, the more the weight of Sarah's betrayal pressed down on me. It was like a cloud hanging over me, suffocating me. And I knew I couldn't just let things go. I had to confront her, to face her and demand the truth. The truth that she had been hiding from me for so long. I called Sarah several times, but she didn't pick up. That's when I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she was avoiding me. She knew I was getting closer to the truth. That's when I made a decision. I would go to her house. I wasn't going to wait for her to come to me. I had to do this face to face. It was a cold, rainy afternoon when I drove to Sarah and Mark's house. The rain pelted against my windshield, making it hard to see. But I didn't care. I had to do this. I parked in front of the house and sat in the car for a moment, gathering my thoughts. What was I going to say? How was I going to confront her without losing control? I wasn't sure. But I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, my heels clicking against the wet pavement as I walked up to the door. I knocked, and the silence that followed was deafening. No one answered. I knocked again, a little harder this time. Still nothing. My heart was pounding, and my hand trembled as I reached for the door handle. It was unlocked. Without thinking, I pushed it open. The house was eerily quiet, the only sound the soft dripping of water from the rain outside. I called out her name, "Sarah?" My voice echoed through the empty hallway, but there was no response. I walked slowly through the house, my footsteps soft on the hardwood floor. When I reached the living room, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The place was a mess, furniture overturned, papers scattered all over the floor. It looked like someone had ransacked the place. Then I saw it. On the coffee table, there was a folder, opened carelessly, with papers spilling out. My stomach dropped when I saw the words on the top of one of the papers. Divorce settlement. I moved closer, my hands shaking as I picked up the document. It was all there, Sarah's plan to divorce Mark, to claim everything she could from him. She had used me, manipulated me, and now she was going to destroy everything Mark had worked for. The papers were a trail, a plan for how she would accuse Mark of infidelity, how she would make it seem like Mark and I had an affair. This was her evidence, the thing she had been setting up all along. Before I could process what I was reading, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. I spun around to see Sarah standing in the doorway, her expression cold, almost calculating. Her eyes locked with mine, and for a moment, I saw something dark flashing in them. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice low and calm, almost too calm. I couldn't help it. I had to ask. "Why, Sarah? Why would you do this? Why would you betray me like this?" She didn't flinch. "It was never about you. It was always about me getting what I deserve," she replied, her voice cold and distant. "I've worked too hard for this life, and I won't let anyone take it away from me, not even you." I was in shock. I had never heard Sarah speak this way before. She had always been so warm, so caring. But now, she was nothing like the person I thought I knew. The person I had trusted. "You used me. You used me to set Mark up to ruin his life," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "You set me up to look like the other woman. You wanted to make him think we had an affair, so you could get everything, his money, his house, his reputation. And I was just your pawn, wasn't I?" She shrugged as if it was nothing. "It doesn't matter what you think. I've already made sure that everything's in place. The divorce is happening. And when it's over, I'll have everything I deserve. It's not personal, it's just business." The coldness in her voice sent a chill down my spine. But then I realized something. This wasn't just about Mark or about me. This was about Sarah's obsession with control, with power, with winning at any cost. And she was willing to sacrifice everything, our friendship, our trust, to get what she wanted. I took a step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. "You don't get it, do you? You've lost everything already. You think you're going to get away with this, but you won't. I'm not going to let you destroy Mark's life." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What are you going to do? You think you can stop me?" I didn't know what to say at first. I didn't have a plan, but I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. Then it hit me. I remembered the folder on the coffee table, the evidence she had gathered. If I could get that to Mark, if I could show him everything she had planned, maybe he would realize the truth. Maybe he would see her for who she really was. I made a split-second decision. I grabbed the folder off the table and turned to leave. But before I could reach the door, Sarah grabbed my arm. "You won't get away with this," she hissed, her grip tightening. I wrenched my arm free, my heart racing. "You've already lost, Sarah. It's over." And with that, I ran out the door, not looking back. It didn't take long for everything to unravel. Mark got the evidence, everything Sarah had been planning, her manipulation, her lies. He was devastated, but he was also relieved to know the truth. Sarah's carefully constructed plan fell apart, and she was forced to face the consequences of her actions. In the end, Mark filed for divorce. He realized that Sarah wasn't the woman he had married. The woman he had loved was someone who had been replaced by a person consumed with greed and manipulation. The divorce was messy, but in the end, Sarah didn't get everything she wanted. In fact, she lost more than she could have ever imagined. As for me, I learned a valuable lesson. Trust is fragile. People you think you know can betray you in the most unimaginable ways. But the most important thing is that we don't let them define us. We don't let their lies and manipulation take away our happiness. The last thing I remember is standing outside, watching the sun set, knowing that I had survived the storm, and that I was stronger than ever. It wasn't just about Mark. It was about me reclaiming my life, my peace, and my freedom. And that was something no one, no matter how much they tried, could ever take away.